Hey, you guys, it's your girl Tina Wolf, bookwithtina.com. Let's get this disclaimer out of the way. This is for entertainment purposes only. During the reading, I may understand, you may not. You may understand, I may not. We both may understand during the reading, or we both may not understand during the reading. I'm going to ask that you respect my perspective, and I will also respect your perspective as well. If the information that you're receiving is different from the information I'm providing, it's quite all right. Please share the message because it may be for me or someone else. Please do not use these readings as a form of therapy or advice. You've been blessed with the gift of discernment. Take the information you need, throw the rest away. Today's topic is called the empty tank. Lately, I've been telling this story about the empty tank. Before we get in that, I want to share this something real quick. The power of the praying wife. I use this for two things. One, I use it to pray for men, just in general as a collective. Okay, when I am doing these particular sessions, but then I also utilize it to pray for women whose masculine energy is a little bit off of balance. So if you are open to various styles of healing as to what you will need, and if you're into bibliomancy, which is flipping through the book to see what message you need and what you need, then this will be a really great way to help to balance out the masculine energy, right? So I'm going to read what's underlined here because this is what stood out to me when I grabbed this book earlier. And it said, God is not the author of confusion, strife, or unworkable situations. You can count on the enemy of his soul coming to cast doubt. It can cause him to live his life on purpose. Okay. So in other words, sometimes you're going to have things that are going to come into your life to cause discomfort, to cause disruption, to kind of shake up and stir up your life, to cause distraction so that you are monitoring everything that's going on around you instead of focusing on your life purpose, which I'm here to help you with, but to focus on your life purpose and what it is that you are supposed to be doing in this life on this particular experience. If you're finding that right now it seems like all the outside influences are attacking you like all at once, maybe it's because your tank is low or maybe your tank is empty, right? So what do you mean by tank, right? So I'm going to share this little story with you. So just imagine you have your car and your car is full of gas. And while your car is full of gas, right? I say, hey, I need you to go 20 miles. And you're like, sure, I have to. Yes, I'm going to go. Yeah, I'll go 20 miles. But why do you feel confident about going 20 miles? What is it about this excursion, this trip, that you're like, yes, I can do it. 20 miles is nothing. I can do that with my eyes closed, right? I can just do that 20 miles, right? You feel confident. You feel safe. You feel good. You know you're not going to run out of gas because you have a full tank of gas, right? But what if I said your gas tank is not only on the E, but it is past the E, and the gas light is also on, okay? And then I say to you, I want you to go and drive your car 20 miles. Well, most people are going to say, Tina, I can't. I can't do it. I can't go because the car is on E. Even if I start it up, it's not going to make it 20 miles. Well, why isn't it going to make 20 miles? It's not going to make 20 miles because why? Because your gas tank is already on E, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens if you decide to go ahead and try it anyway? Let's just go through that. Let's get in the car. Visualize. I want you to get in the car and I want you to imagine looking at this empty tank that's past E. The light is on. What are you doing? You're driving. And you're praying and wishing because you have gotten this car started and you are praying and wishing that you are going to make it this 20 miles, even though you're not sure if you're going to make it. But you're going to try, right? Even though you know I have not prepared, I've not put gas in here, but I am expecting this car to make it 20 miles, or at least I'm going to try. I'm going to think I want this car to make it 20 miles. So as you're driving, let's say you get there and you get 10 miles and then the car just dies because there's just the gas is just gone at this point, right? So what happens? You get out of the car, you're probably mad, you're probably upset, you're like, dang, I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it, right? Well, I ain't going to be able to make it. And then here comes an innocent bystander that sees you standing outside of your car. Now they don't know that you've run out of gas, but they come in, they're like, hey, how you doing? Oh my God, the town is only 10 more miles up the road. And you're like, I know, man. They're like, oh, what? My bad. Everything okay? No, I don't have any gas in the car. Okay, well, they don't know that you don't have any gas in the car, right? Well, I mean, do you want me to help? No, I'm going to figure it out, right? Now you left. You decided to drive that 20 miles with no gas in the car. You know there was a high probability that you was not going to be able to make it. And the person that came along is in a great mood and it's just like, hey, how's your day? Or how can I help you? And you refuse that help. Or not only do you refuse the help, but you talk bad to them, crazy, probably cuss them out and everything else, right? But this person just wants to help you. You snapping on everybody because you did not fill up your tank. You chose to go out there on an empty tank. So now anybody that comes into your proximity, they get punished, right? Now, what if you decided to take that help? Would you feel better? Probably so. That innocent bystander says, you know what? I can take you 10 more miles into town, help you get the gas so you can get your car going, right? But you got to be willing to receive the help. A lot of times we are running on empty instead of running on full. If you are not running on full, if you're not running on a full tank of gas, right? But you're expecting your body to still do stuff. You're expecting your mind to still work. You're expecting your response to be the same as it would on an empty tank. You expect it to be the same as it would on a full tank. That's not fair. That's not going to happen. What are you doing to fill your tank up? What are you doing to fill your tank up, right? I'm going to go to the Trusting God Day by Day, Joyce Meyer, and then I'm also going to pull some cards from my Archangel Raphael deck. So let's see what you can be doing here, and let's also see what Joyce has to say. If your tank is empty, let's see, it says, you are more than a conqueror. Yet amid all these things, we are more than conquerors and gain a surpassing victory through him who loved us. Romans 8:37. A person with the spirit of a conqueror must confront and deal with the adversities he or she will face, not run from them. We simply cannot keep trying to escape or avoid situations that are difficult. Anytime we run from a situation, we can almost be sure we will have to go back and face it, or something very similar at a later time in our lives. In other words, the more you run, the more the cycle is going to repeat itself. Now, this could be for pleasant experiences, but it can also be for unpleasant experiences as well. If you absolutely feel like, I'm just going to avoid it and it's going to go away all by itself, you are evaporating your full gas tank and the handle is just starting to go down, right? And just think about Moses. He ran from Egypt and spent 40 years in the desert where God prepared him to be a great leader. When God appeared to Moses in the burning bush, he basically said, now I want you to go back to Egypt. It says, see Exodus 3:2-10. Yes, God sent Moses right back to the place he tried to escape. The Bible is full of similar stories, enough to convince me that Running from adversity doesn't do anybody any good. I used to have an extremely difficult time with people whose personalities were similar to my father's. Because he abused me, I didn't want to be around people who spoke the way he spoke, acted the way he acted, or reminded me of him in any way. But over a period of time, I began to notice God was surrounding me with people who reminded me of my dad. Every time I encountered someone who reminded me of him, I felt insecure and fearful, and I slipped into old behavior patterns. I didn't like my responses, but I was asking God to change me and show me truth. He put me in situations where I would have to deal with the fears from my past. He was trying to get me to grow up and be a stronger, more mature Christian. When we often ask God to deliver us from the wrong things, we want to be delivered from our trials, but we need to ask Him to deliver us from the things in our hearts that hinder His purposes for our lives. It says, trust in Him. If you are tempted to run from adversity, remember Moses. He spent 40 years trying to run away, only to end up right back where he started. Getting away from trouble should never be your goal. Your goal needs to be trust God to help you conquer difficulties with a Christ-like attitude, or whatever your belief system is. All right. Let's go to the romance angels. I'm gonna do some more bibliomancy, and then I'm gonna shuffle some cards too. All right. So let's go here. The card is retreat. It says it's time to disconnect from the world, right? So just much like the story of Moses that she was just sharing in there, she was saying, you know what? Moses did have to take a step back. He had to disconnect from the world. He had to get his stuff together. And once he got his stuff together, then he went back and handled the situation. So what is being said here, what God's saying, or what your higher belief system, or what this message to you is, if it resonates with you, is retreat, 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 so that you can step back and take a broader picture, much like the hawk spirit animal, right? Which I can read that to you guys if you like. But with the hawk spirit animal, what you want to be reminded of is that the hawk, he doesn't find his prey. He doesn't find how to create a solution to get his prey by hovering low to the ground. He goes high up. And when he goes high up, he is able to scan everything and see everything that's a possibility that's going on. He gets to see all the outside influences, right? What are outside influences? For you, outside influences would be what? Friends, family, co-workers. Those would be outside influences, right? Outside influences, excuse me. Those would be outside influences. If any of those can cause a disruption in what's going on, it's time to create barriers, right? In order to see the outside influences, you have to retreat. You have to come up high. If you notice, I didn't say anything about a spouse, but if this applies to your spouse, it can apply to your spouse as well, right? But you need to retreat. Let's go to hawk spirit animal, and then we're going to pull these cards out to see what it is exactly that you need to do, right? If you didn't understand the message that was said earlier, which I love Joyce's stories because they're always very good to the point. So hawk spirit animal. You're caught up in too many details, so step back so you can get a greater perspective on the situation, which is exactly what was said. Sometimes when you're so busy looking at the facts, but these are facts, these are facts, these are facts. I used to despise when people would do that, right? Facts. While you're looking at the facts, you're not paying attention to the person's emotional feelings and how they're feeling about the situation and what you're seeing, right? Just because something is factual doesn't mean that you can discredit and not validate what the other person is feeling, whether you feel it's right or wrong, right? So what happens when you are not validated, or what happens when another person is not validating you? Let's talk about this validation real quick. Hey T, all my comments are coming up, right? Let's talk about validation. If you're not being validated, this is what can happen if you're not being validated. Let your friends help you. Pay attention to the red flags. Think about what has happened in the past, because much like what Joyce talked about with Moses, no matter how much you run, no matter how much you run from the cycles that are happening in your past, it's going to continue to happen until you confront it. This is why God said you're a conqueror, right? The next one is you will need to call in your soulmate, right, to help you. A soulmate can be a person, place, thing, or situation that is helping you to grow through this experience. Because right now you're not seeing it. You're not using the hawk vision. You're not looking at the broad perspective, right? The next thing is when you call on the soulmate is going to be very passionate about helping you, right? And we're not talking about romantic here, okay? We're talking about an observer that has seen everything that is going on. Then the card is romantic feelings. It says at the bottom, your feelings are real and worth exploring. So the romantic part, right? To me, what this card is representing in this situation is the intimate part is them being able to recognize your feelings are real and worth exploring, and not just saying facts, 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 and this is what happened, right? Because it's about validation. And if you're not paying attention and letting friends help you, you're not paying attention to these flags, there's going to be discourse between you. That validation is needed. If you're not going to give that validation, or the validation is not going to be received, here's what you can do. I know what I would do, but let's see what the cards say. If you don't receive this validation, if you don't receive the validation, it says release your ex. It means to release the person, the situation. Because if not, you're going to spend a cycle trying to continually give validation from this person, and they just not going to give it to you, or the situation is not going to give it to you. If you can't use the hawk energy, and if you cannot see it for yourself, and then your friends are pointing it out to you, and you don't want to see it, and you don't want to look at it, eventually you're going to see it, but then you're going to have to let them go, right? If you don't let them go, you're going to continue to attract the same experience, hence staying in the cycle. Same thing of what Joyce Meyer is talking about, like with Moses. You're going to have to be able to confront the situation. And confront doesn't mean angry. It doesn't mean prove points. It doesn't mean talk about facts. It means come to a solution, come to an agreement, right? The next card says this could be the one. You ain't gonna never get to this is the one if you keep attracting the cycle of I have to be validated by the other person. Now, if they validate you, if you ask for validation and they give it to you, then it's okay. But if they don't give you this validation, you're going to keep having the same experience. You have to validate what you feel inside yourself first. Next card is the flirt card, right? Sometimes it's the way that you talk. Sometimes it's the way that you speak to people that can help them to give you the validation. If you're trying to be forceful, or if you're demanding, or if you're overacting or over dramatizing the situation, they may not respond to it, right? So then this leaves you in a place of, is it safe for you to love? I'm going to read the bottom. Open your heart to give and receive the highest energy of all. If you can't figure this situation out, and if you don't release this person, then you're always going to feel unsafe in these situations of not being validated. The reason why she's saying in here that you have to see yourself as a conqueror, or pray, meditate, and ask for God, or whatever your belief system is, to give you the strength and courage as a conqueror, is to help you get through these challenges. Now, where did it say? Over here. I'll come back to the retreat card. All right. Remember, it said, God is not the author of confusion, strife, and unworkable situations. So if you are experiencing the same cycle over and over, and you have prayed, meditated, and asked, she has already said in this book, she has already said, the reason why God keeps sending you this experience and sending you people with this experience, because this is a test. This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. Remember, this is only a test. And the reason why you're failing it is because you're not doing what it says. You're not listening to your friends. You're not releasing the people that are not validating you. And you're not putting yourself in the place of where people are validating you. But the first validation has to come from you. Before you even go to that person, before to remove confusion, it says, remember, God is not the author of confusion, strife, or unworkable situations, and neither is it for you. If you're already going in confused, you have to know going into the conversation first, or going into situation. This is how confrontations happen, right? You go in and saying, okay, in my mind, I know what this is, and I know the potential outcome of what I would like to see happen. So I'm going to present the solution first. This is what I would like to happen, and then this is why. Right? If the response coming from the other person is confusion, go with your answer. Always. Point blank, period. God is not the author of confusion, and neither should you be. If you're confused about a situation and you're staying in it, that's on you. And you're going to continue to have this confusion until you figure out what needs to happen. Going back to the empty tank. The more that you seek validation from a confusing situation, the emptier your tank is going to become. Because you're burning up energy. Okay. We'll go to battlefield of the mind. Let me see, what time is it? What time is it? Okay, it's 7:30 on the dot. Perfect. We're going to close it out with this. Battlefield of the mind. Why? Okay. It says, I don't deserve God's blessing because I am not worthy. Okay. Reproach defined. The word reproach means blame, disgrace, shame. When God said that he would roll away the reproach of Egypt from the Israelites, he was making a point. Egypt represents the world. After a few years of being in the world and becoming worldly, we all need the reproach of it rolled away. Because of the things I had done and what had been done to me, I had a shame based nature. I blamed myself for what had happened to me, even though much of it had taken place in my childhood and there was nothing I could have done to stop it. We have said that grace is the power of God coming to us as a free gift from him to help us do with ease what we cannot do ourselves. God wants to give us grace, and Satan wants to give us disgrace, which is another word for reproach. Disgrace told me that I was no good, not worthy of God's love or help. Shame had poisoned my inner man. I was not only ashamed of what had been done to me, but I was ashamed of myself. Deep down inside, I did not like myself. God's rolling away the reproach from us means that each of us must receive for ourselves the forgiveness he is offering for all of our past sins. You must realize that you can never deserve God's blessings. You can never be worthy of them. You can only humbly accept and appreciate them and be in awe of how good He is and how much He loves you. Self hatred, self rejection, refusal to accept God's forgiveness by forgiving yourself, not understanding righteousness through the blood of Jesus, and all related problems will definitely keep you wandering in the wilderness. Your mind must be renewed concerning right standing with God through Jesus and not through your own works. So, in other words, if the devil is the author of confusion and God is your saving grace, and He's granting you, or whatever your belief system is, and He is granting you grace, He's granting you forgiveness, accept and appreciate the forgiveness, learn from this situation, allow Him to get you out of this cycle that you are in, because it's already been pointed out, is confusion. Why would you want to stay in a situation of confusion? And that applies to me too, right? Because I've been in some situations where I'm like, this is confusing to me. Anything that causes confusion in your life, the cards already said you need to exit out and get it out, right? Point blank, period. If you're going to keep it around, then do a boundary, right? I love you guys. You have an awesome and amazing day. Make sure you are filling up your tank. If your tank is not full, everything's going to be able to attack you. Because what happens when you run out of gas with your car? You're sitting on the side of the road. Anybody can come up. It could be somebody good or it could be somebody bad. Don't take them chances. Keep your tank full. And I'm not talking about your car. I love you guys. Have an awesome and amazing day. Take some time to pour into yourself and fill yourself up before you step out into the world and allow these outside influences to attack your spirit, your nature, your physical person. I love y'all. Be great, be awesome, be amazing. Make sure you compliment at least 10 people, because you never know whose life you can change. You never know whose vibration you can raise up, and you never know what door of opportunity you can open up by simply paying a compliment. Y'all be great and loving to each other, and be forgiving to yourself, most importantly. You know what I mean?